Hi folks, welcome to G4G here on YouTube. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. If you notice, the camera happens to be bigger on this one. That's because this is basically not going to be a gaming video, although it will be about gaming. We're just here, live coverage of Buttgate 2016, Day 12, Buttgate, Soldiers On. So, what is Buttgate? Well, Buttgate was created on March 25th by a post on the Overwatch forums. Now, let me give you a little bit of background information that you may not know on the Overwatch forums. By the way, yes, you do happen to see a North Carolina shirt, but please do not hold my governor against me. My governor is a flaming fucking idiot. The things you hear about in the state, I'm sorry that I live in a state where these things happen, the bathrooms and everything like that, and honestly, it's proving quite bad for North Carolina because people who were going to bring jobs to North Carolina are now not bringing jobs to North Carolina. So if this governor does not repeal his decision, he's a fucking idiot, but okay. So, semi on topic to that, Buttgate 2016. This post by a person named Phipps, I don't know if it's male or female, has started quite the internet sensation. Ironically enough, there is a show on TV that says the internet ruined my life, and honestly, for Phipps, I hope it drives this person off a cliff. So Phipps made a post about one particular pose from Tracer. It's a victory animation pose. The thread title is Overwatch's strong female heroes and that one Tracer pose. Now, as I was saying, a little bit of background on the Overwatch beta forums. You can only post here if you are actually in the beta. So what does this mean? That means this is right now a small pond. I can't reply to this and call this person a fucking idiot if I wanted to, because I'm not in the beta. I played the open weekend with girlfriend back in 2015, and I'm anxiously awaiting what's coming up. And in a friggin' trolling moment from Blizzard, we are getting Tracer in Heroes of the Storm before we can actually pilot Tracer in her own universe. But this is a small pond right now. This post is akin to a druid going to the Blizzard Druid forums and saying that one Druid spell and hope to get any recognition of it, or going to a bug forum and saying this one undead's ankle is turned backwards and one of his feet. The chances of you getting noticed anywhere else in Blizzard's universes are so slim, but because this is a smaller pond, this has spiraled out of control because it was so easily noticed. So I wanted to start off by saying blah blah blah, excellent cast of heroes, this, that, Maid, a Zarya, a Widowmaker, excellent spectrum of players, personalities, and player fantasies. This is a key over here. Player fantasies. Now, Overwatch is clearly not a fantasy role-playing game. It might be fantasy because you are going to a different reality that is not our own. However, player fantasies is a rather large key to this. Overwatch is not necessarily a game that I would think of applying a player fantasy to, unlike, say, an RPG. When I think of TF2, I don't think of the pyro as a fantasy. I could be a deviant and think that if the world is set upon fire, that is awesome, so then maybe being a pyro is a player fantasy. Or if I want to go rocket jumping up a wall, maybe a soldier is a player fantasy. In Unreal Tournament, if I hit a moving shot combo, maybe that's a fucking fantasy, but okay. With that being said, let's talk about Tracer. Marketing standpoint, she's the star of the show. She's a great hero. She's in all this promotional media and lore, blah, blah, blah. That is true. She's fast, she's silly, she's kind, she's a good friend. That's inference there about her being a good friend. But I guess maybe some of the material you could say that is kind of being implied by Blizzard. But more on implication and inference later. Her body seems to be comprised of about 95% spunk. We're really projecting here anyway. Sugar and spice and spunk and dice. Or she's got fun poses. She got an amazing victory animation. All this art reinforces the great character you built around Tracer. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, we have this pose. This pose is this one, called Over the Shoulder 75. Now, if you're familiar with feminist frequency and the teachings of Anita Sarkeesian and all these other things right now, this is what has been affectionately called in the media as like the boob butt pose. The pose that struggles to show ass, titties, ass and titties, ass and titties, titties. At the same time, in other words, showing off all the female goods at once. You get face, you get boobs, you get butt. Now, in this particular pose, there are no boobs because, as you can see, the arm blocks it. And her gauntlet, and she's not twisted quite that way. So this is just butt. And to be honest, if I was to pass judgment on this butt, she has the kind of corseted waist look going on over there, but it's not the best ass in the world, nor do I think it is hyper accentuated. It's not very high up. It's just a normal butt, and yeah, it's got some straps below it, but in that pose, it doesn't seem to be, like, underwire for the butt. I wouldn't immediately think sex when I see that, but Phipps does. What about this pose has anything to do with the character you're building in Tracer? It's not fun, it's not silly, it has nothing to do with being a fast, elite killer. It just reduces Tracer to another bland female sex symbol. We aren't looking at Widowmaker. This isn't a character who is in part defined by flaunting her sexuality. The pose says to the player base, oh, we've got all these cool diverse characters, but at any moment we're willing to reduce them to sex symbols to help boost our investment game. I have a young daughter that every day when I wake up wants to watch the Recall trailer again. She knows who Tracer is, and as she grows up, she can grow up alongside these characters. Listen, my friend. If your role models come from media, be it TV, computer, commercials, whatever, something is wrong with your life. Role models need to come from reality because they are that much more tangible. My role models are my parents and my grandparents. I would not be anywhere today if it wasn't for them. My grandparents and my parents have taught me so many things. They live with me day to day. There are actions that I take in a day that I do or don't do because I'm like, if they were watching this, what would they think? My grandparents are dead. My parents are 2 hours away. They have no chance of seeing in any of this. Unless, of course, you believe in afterlife. And then my grandparents are watching everything. Sorry for the fapping. But that is a role model. And that is who your icon should be. Re-fucking-ality. Not Black Widow. Not the Hulk, not Iron Man, not Batman, not Superman, not Nova, not Zeratul, not Abathur, God help anybody for that one, not Tracer, and not Widowmaker, not Genji. None of these people should be role models. That means your life is failing if you cannot get role models in your own reality. So this person who's so concerned about their daughter needs to rethink things a bit. Speaking of inference and implication, let us actually look at this pose. This person inferred sexuality in this pose. Now, let me make this clear. Being a communications major in college, this is something near and dear to my heart. I was originally in ORCOM, Organizational Communications. switched over to PR, and when I came out of college, I was looking for PR jobs. One of my favorite aspects of all of my classwork in college for this was nonverbal communication and persuasion. I could go on about nonverbal stuff, but implication and inference are two different things. Implication is from the source material. When you speak without speaking, when you speak with hidden subtext and have stuff in between the lines from you, that is an implication. An inference is what the receiver processes in their own brain, whether or not an implication is actually there. And that is the key, because the inference is on the receiver's own mindset. This is true of any art. Any art is always in the eye of the beholder. You might get the meaning of the song as done by the artist, or maybe you will reject it and substitute your own. In this case of the tracer pose, if we were to look at it, I do not see it dripping with sexuality, because it isn't boob butt. It's butt. And she is looking back at you, but maybe this is all about tracer spunk. Maybe she is looking at you saying, look at my ass, it's the last thing you see as I dash away. Or, kiss my ass, I just beat you with all my speed. This person inferred sexuality where maybe you or me or the person to the left of you or 200 miles away might infer this as spunky in a way, especially if they know tracer. Really, this needs to be put out to a poll, and you need to question people who do know tracer and don't, and see how many people actually infer sexuality from this pose. I don't happen to see it, nor do I think that ass is particularly sexual. But this person inferred sexuality. The thing is, we need to question, why did that person perceive this as sexual when I don't think the implication is there? What is this person's own values that they see sex where maybe there isn't any? And in case you haven't heard the news lately, we're now also talking about racism in a Gap ad. If you see racism in that Gap ad, you need to question, why do you see that? Is it really being implied, or are you just inferring it? But that's something else. So this person compares it to Widowmaker. So let's look at a classic Widowmaker pose. This one is kind of more along the lines of sexuality. You have the boob window, and you have an attempt to go for boob butt here. You definitely have the boobs. The butt is from the side, and it's at a hysterical angle here that is obviously inhuman. So Widowmaker, we know, has kind of come under fire for that before. If we take a look at this pose, again, it's almost going for boob butt. It's very similar to the tracer pose. Widowmaker is generally perceived as tending to be a more sexual character, and this is always attached to the Black Widow kind of icon. Sexy, does what she wants, leaves you for dead. But I want to draw your attention to this series over here. So this series, when I happen to see it, I see what I believe is tracer spunk. It looks like she's taking a selfie. Hi-yo! That's what I imagine for it. But then you look at something like this. Now, there are so many things that you can infer on this one. You can infer that this was just mid-animation and you happen to catch her badly, or she's in the middle of getting a right duffer in the duffer, if you know what I mean on this one. Or she's just ate the best cup of Jell-O she's ever had. What you infer from this, or what you perceive, is your own brain. Nobody knows really what's going on here, so everything is subject to opinion. This pose over here, again, could convey tracer spunk, kind of like, I don't want to eat those vegetables. youthful, spiteful, rebellious. It could be, I'm really thinking. It could be she smelled Roadhog's farts. Or it could be she's really trying to take a shit. Like, we don't know. Everything that you view this picture as is just like inference. It's what you perceive the picture to be telling you. And that's what absolutely slays me. So now the end of Buttgate over here is now the pose has been replaced. It is actually, I think, I almost really applaud Blizzard for doing this, because this is a giant smack in Phipps's face. You want sexuality in this pose, where maybe we didn't intend it, then we will give you straight up sexuality at this point. We are going to give you a new tracer pose that actually comes from old pinup girls. Now, granted, she's not in, like, near lingerie, nor is she wearing high heels. She's on her tiptoes. She's showing a lot of leg. The butt is still there, but now she has a kind of a happy face, like, oh yeah. They could have taken this pose right here and made her blow her hair up like she does in some of her media, and it would have fixed it, because then you would get the spunk and you could come back to more what I've suggested and say, maybe this is all about, like, haha, look at my ass kiss and I'm gone. Instead, they went this way, and I think it's awesome. First of all, the uproar over somebody's victory pose in a game that you don't even have to use if you don't want to is ridiculous. The fact that it got replaced, I'm sad to see that Blizzard actually paid any attention to the thread. And the only reason it got paid attention to is because of the fact is that it was in a small pond. Do you know how much gets posted to Blizzard and everything like that on the WoW forums or the StarCraft forums that they will probably never ever see? The fact that this person got lucky enough to be noticed and actually enacted a change in a major game. Not some little Indian thing. Excuse me, that's not some little indie thing like, say, Axiom Verge or Hyperlight Drifter or something like that. This is a major AAA studio. And the fact that this person was actually had enough impact blows my mind. But I find a great sadness in this, that Blizzard entertained going, yeah, you know, you're right. How about Blizzard just came in and said, no, the original artist intended no sexuality in this pose whatsoever. It was meant to be flippant and fun, and in her kind of rebellious nature. If you are perceiving sexuality here, you need to check yourself. And this is what has happened. People who subscribe to that theory that Phipps is trying to put out over here, you see, you hear popular words of, like, entitlement and privilege and everything. What has happened is a post like this has now flipped entitlement the other way around. This person is now entitled to change Blizzard's art. This person is now gets to go away from this with the privilege of knowing, look at what I did. So you tell me where entitlement and privilege is now. It has gone to the other side because everybody's so afraid to go against the sensitive topic, even if it's wrong. Whether or not this is a sexual pose or not, we can't say if it's wrong or right. It's an opinion. If you share the opposite opinion, you will think that is wrong. If you share the same opinion, you will think that is right. But personally, I don't believe this was intended to be sexual unless it was highlighted all over. If this was Tracer's representation in all of her media, maybe the implication would be there, kind of like Widowmaker. But one victory pose buried under how many others there might be does not mean this is sexual. So, folks, that's my rant on it. This is Napalm Dawn signing off on day 12 of Buttgate 2016. Stay tuned to see what happens.